Maybe I dive into femininity when you're around. Are you cold?
Yes, it's freezing in here.
It's not freezing.
You're wearing a jacket.
This is a duster. Oh, hello again and welcome, you beautiful people. Cliff and Chandra here from Not Gospel Studios. There are a lot of Christian stereotypes out there. And I started this channel and Chandra echoed this sentiment a little bit, I think. We started this channel on the premise of we want to challenge some of the Christian stereotypes, sort of reclaim the Christian image that, you know, Christians have something worth listening to. Not just because we're Christians, but because we're Christians as well as being people. Like, you know, we're not just mindless religious robots. That being said, we thought we'd take on some religious stereotypes today. Talk about them. This is that video. Let's talk about it.
Let's start easy.
Okay, easy.
Are you a good tipper?
Am I a good tipper?
I've heard Christians are bad tippers my whole life.
Okay, well, that's a pretty common stereotype.
Yeah.
Christians are bad tippers. And I think it has some truth to it. I think Christians are, a lot of Christians for a long time have been just very frugal. Like the 19th century kind of Christians, the boomers and all that kind of stuff, the work hard, pull yourself up by your bootstraps kind of mentality where they didn't want to give away. Like you see a homeless person, the idea of I'm not giving them $10 because they're just going to buy booze. I think that frugal nature for some Christians came from not wanting to support bad behavior or wondering where their money was going to go if they gave it away. So they wouldn't be good tippers and stuff like that. Thinking, I'm not just going to give them more money to buy whatever. And I think that stereotype never left because I believe in tipping well. But I also believe in tipping poorly if the service sucks. I'm just being real. It's like this whole quiet quitting thing that people are doing where they're like, I'm barely doing the bare minimum and that's it. It's like, well, if you do the bare minimum, you are going to get the bare minimum tip from me. It is not going to be nice. But if you have good service, I'm going to tip you well. What about you?
I'm definitely a frugal tipper unless I feel, you know how sometimes you're just around someone and you're like, I feel like I need this today.
Yes.
Then, of course, you know, I'll give extra and stuff. But in general, I'm like frugal tipper, I guess. I'm not like my brother. I think he's so concerned with people liking him, he over-tips everywhere. like seriously, $10 on a pizza delivery, which I think is crazy.
Hey, to each their own. I like tip extra because I feel like I'm a representative of the faith. Not that I want to be liked and stuff. So I want to tip well. So I'm going to be doing, if your standard's 15 to 18%, I'm probably going to be doing 20% most of the time. But if it's bad service, I'm going to be at that 10% to 15.
I don't even think of it in percentages. Like I worked at Waffle House for a long time. And if two people were sitting at my table, I expected at least $5. Now, it's been a few years. So you try to leave $6 to $7 for a meal. And then if it's a nice restaurant, then it's going to be at least $10, if not $15. Not a percentage of the bill.
I look at it as percentages because some of my friends who worked at some of these restaurants, the restaurants will wind up taking out 13% for tips, which means even...
Like from a debit card?
Well, no. Like,
most of my tips were in
cash.
cash.
At the end of the night, all the cash, they pull them together and the restaurant
that's
takes
at bigger
13% and
yeah.
spread. So it's like, if it's decent service, I'm going to come in at 20% or something just in case there's some kind of, you know, charge or whatever.
Yeah.
But if it's crummy service, I'll put a dime on the table. You know what I mean?
When it's where waiters have to split their tips with hostesses in the kitchen and stuff and busboys, they do deserve a little more because they're not just getting only their money. I think sometimes the stereotype came around because on Sunday afternoons, church lets out, and then all of a sudden there's a bunch of Christians eating.
Flooding all of the restaurants, all the human feed troughs.
And I would like to point out, just because they went to church does not make them a Christian.
Well, yeah. And
so they cannot be representatives of Christianity.
Well, and...
That's because we celebrated Halloween.
Because Jesus said, don't talk bad about my people. Anyways.
People who go to church and aren't Christians.
about my pastors. Don't talk about my pastors that go down to the Golden Corral. They're struggling to get the bills paid. No wonder they don't drop a $5.
But I mean, like working at Waffle House, I mean, I had good tips from people who were Christians and weren't Christians. And I had bad tips from people who weren't Christians and were Christians.
Yeah, and we can't solve the world's problems right here on this couch. but representing and talking about Christians, I will say that it is a stereotype that was well earned. But I think there's a new generation.
I don't think it even was well earned.
But I think it was well earned by a particular generation of hardworking people who saw hardworking. Oh,
you
boomers,
think it's the old people?
Yeah, hardworking boomers who saw a younger generation, like in like the 60s and 70s, who weren't into like religion, kind of started having this falling off trend. Like it wasn't the popular thing, and there was drugs in the hippie kind of generation. And I think it was just, I don't even know if it was a Christian thing so much as if it was I'm not giving them money for their pot or whatever. You know what I mean? Like,
well, and then also your grandparents used to tip a quarter, and that was plenty. And nowadays, a quarter
with inflation,
a quarter just doesn't do it anymore.
Anyways, another Christian stereotype. The stereotype that we need to talk about this, that Christians only read the Bible. That's it.
I didn't know that was a stereotype.
Well, I think the stereotype comes from, again, an older generation of Christians, in particular, and we have to talk about in America because that's where we're at. So an older generation of Christians in America who were the book burners, the original book burners, like the original Puritans and all those, would be like, that's heresy, and they would be the ones burning the literature, like those are evil books or bad books. And so you got this stereotype that, well, the only thing they wanted to read was the Bible because that's the only true thing there is. You know, and then you got so many Christians that use the Bible as the reference point, right? Like when you're talking about religion and defending your religion, in Matthew 13 it says blah blah, and then the people are always like, well, you can't use the Bible to prove the Bible. Yeah. So it became a stereotype that Christians. I think that's partly where the ignorant Christian idea comes from, where that Christians are ignorant and don't believe in science because they only read the Bible. I think that's where that stereotype comes from.
It's hard to get out of your own bubble, I guess, because I grew up with a mom who read everything and I read everything. And so in my family, it wasn't like that.
I was definitely a little bit more sheltered. Like I remember I got my first AC/DC CD, and my mom and dad, first AC/DC cassette tape, and my mom and dad confiscated that immediately. They heard the song Big Balls, and they immediately confiscated that thing.
Well, how old were you?
I was in my teens.
Oh. Yeah. But that's funny.
I found it later. It was under their bed.
Okay.
They didn't throw it away. They just shoved it under their bed.
How old's your oldest? 9?
Yes, just turned 9.
Would you let him listen to that?
That song?
Yeah.
I would he's listened to AC/DC. Maybe not that song.
Yeah, but would you let him listen to that song, you think?
I would have a talking with him and be like, this song is funny, buddy. I think he'd laugh at that song.
Yeah.
Because I got a house with 3 little boys. We talk about, pardon my French, we talk about nuts, balls, sack. We talk about that stuff because it's 4 dudes. So, but
I didn't know that was a stereotype about Christians.
Yes. And it's a complete shocker when I tell somebody I've read the entire Quran as a Christian.
Yeah.
They're like, what? Why would you do that? And I'm like, why not? Like, why would you read it? Well, I'm not a Christian. Just because I'm a Christian doesn't mean I can't read the Quran.
Yeah.
Like, that's when I realized that stereotype was there. And then we talked about books on a desert island. And immediately we had to be like, well, we'd naturally take the Bible, you know. But it's like, I just think that stereotype is there. And when you talk about, because we have so many layers of censorship we have to go through, like, well, is this a little bit too gritty? Is this a little bit too blah, 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 blah? Does it check these boxes where it's okay for me to read it?
Yeah.
Someone who's not a Christian they don't have that ingrained in their, their lifestyle. Like, well, I probably can't read that. They just make the moral choice. Am I going to read it or not?
Maybe it's like you're saying, an older generation, because a lot of them didn't like a lot of willy-nilly entertainment, you know?
Yeah. Well, and there is a scripture that talks about putting off the former things and putting off foolishness where it's not convenient and all this stuff. And maybe that's where that came from. But I definitely feel like if we have not proven by now on this channel that we believe in, there's three things you should be looking to increase every day, in my opinion: mental health, your physical health, and your spiritual health.
Okay.
And yes, reading the Bible is good for your mental health, but there's so many other things to read. Reading in general is good for your mental health. So Christians read other books than the Bible, and we find them entertaining. Although the Bible is the greatest story ever told. If you like this clip from the Not Gospel Studios YouTube channel, don't forget to share. Click on one of the other links and videos. You can find them here, and subscribe. I think it's down here. Tell your friends about us. Tell them that it's healthy, that it's vegan, and all of those things. Keep being awesome, because that's how God made you.